Hi, this is Sgt Maj Jim Campbell, and we're here again for the next segment of Questions from the Field.
My name is Specialist Fetterman. I'm with the Charlie Battery 101st Field Artillery, and I was wondering what procedures would I have to go through to receive my re-enlistment incentives?
Enlistment incentives is always a question I get from soldiers whenever I'm out talking to units. Typically, the best answer that I can give you, Specialist Fetterman, is that, and this for any soldier, know what your contract says. Because everybody's incentive contract is just a little bit different. So know what the contract says. Yes, the Army and the Guard, we have an obligation to uphold our end of the contract. But if you read through that contract, our soldiers and airmen also have an obligation to uphold their end of the contract. Typically what's happening when an enlistment incentive is delayed, typically it's because the soldier's not done something that they should have done. So what does that mean? That could mean that you haven't taken a fitness test within the prescribed time frame. You know, for Army National Guard soldiers, that means that if you haven't taken an ACFT in the last 14 months, you'll be ineligible for a bonus. Same thing with your height weight. Those are the little things that happen sometimes that make you ineligible to get your enlistment incentive. A lot of things that's happening right now is on the Army side, you know, your units are probably talk to you about Clear the Army, where every soldier is required to have a Tier 3 investigation completed towards a security clearance. If you're missing any of those little things, it could stop your bonus. But how do you get it done? Really, the answer is know what your contract says, talk with your first line leader, and talk with your readiness NCO. You know, I will say, and to be completely open and honest, 2-3 years ago we did have some significant issues across the National Guard, not just here in Massachusetts, with the incentive payment system. The 54 states and territories and the National Guard Bureau have worked hard, and most of those issues have been clarified and fixed. So if you're having an issue with a bonus or an incentive, please reach out to your first line leader and your readiness NCO.
My name is Staff Sergeant Curtis Leonard. I'm with Charlie Battery 101FA. What is the most important aspect of being a leader to a junior soldier?
Sergeant Leonard, that's a great question. And it's a hard one to answer, to be quite honest with you. You know, when you look at all the leadership competencies and attributes, you know, I would encourage you as a young leader to look at the NCO guide and be familiar with the competencies and attributes that are outlined in the NCO guide. But what's the most important one? You know, I'm going to kind of lean back a little bit on, you know, my time at Penn State and take my faculty advisor's mantra, and that is, it depends. It depends on the situation you find yourself in. If you remember, you know, the last segment we did, similar question about, you know, how do we as leaders motivate our soldiers? And so the most important attribute for you, you know, for a young leader, for your soldiers, you know, my personal opinion is empathy. You know, if you ask 10 different leaders out there what they think the most important attribute is, you're probably going to get 10 different answers. But Sergeant Major Campbell's opinion is empathy. You know, when I'm looking at, you know, how I'm dealing with young soldiers and airmen today, I try to look at their questions, their concerns, their problems through their perspective and through their lens and not mine. You know, a good example of that is, you know, I talk to a lot of senior leaders today, and, you know, those of us that have spent, you know, a long time in the military, you know, when I came in, you know, we couldn't ask why, and we didn't think about asking why we were told to do something. We were just, you know, our leaders, our NCOs, our first sergeants, commanders would tell us to do something. We just salute and say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and go off and do it. Soldiers today want to know they want to know why. And a lot of senior leaders question that, and they get frustrated with having to answer that why to our junior soldiers and airmen. But that's where empathy comes in. And when you can look at that from their perspective and understand where they're coming from, that makes you a better leader, and it enables you to be a better leader for your young soldier.
My name is Sergeant Tui, and my question is, what can I do in my civilian job to help me get promoted beyond national?
Sergeant Tui, that's an interesting question on how do you correlate your experiences in your civilian job and your military position. For a lot of our soldiers and airmen, they do the same things in their civilian occupation that they do in the military. You know, for an example, a lot of our military police officers are also police officers in the civilian world. But a lot of our soldiers and airmen, they don't have that overlap between their civilian careers and their military careers. But what you can do, regardless of your civilian occupation, you always have an opportunity to continue to learn and grow. And so most civilian occupations offer you opportunities to obtain additional certifications or go to different training or different classes. So all of those classes that you go to in your civilian occupation, if you get a certificate or you get some kind of credential, I would encourage you to work with your readiness NCO and your unit leadership to put that into your official military records. Because while it may not give you promotion points, it may not be worth 10 points or 15 points, like your military education would. The board would see that in your records and see that you are continuing to grow and develop professionally. So that would help you in your career. Plus the fact that to be quite honest, that no matter what the class is associated with, or no matter what the training is associated with, if you are continuing to learn and grow both personally and professionally, that will make you a better soldier. And if you are a better soldier, you're a better leader. And if you're a better leader, then we have a better Massachusetts National Guard.
Hi, I'm Specialist Chase, and I'd like to ask, how does the board decide who gets promoted?
Specialist Chase, I don't think I ever go to a unit and don't get asked that question about how does the board decide who gets promoted. So let me answer that question. So the board doesn't decide who gets promoted. Your commander decides if you're going to get promoted or not. What the board does do is the board decides the order that people get promoted in. And basically the OML, or Order of Merit list. So your commander has decided that you're eligible to take on the more responsibilities of the next higher grade. So when you go to the board, it's no secret, and we've pushed this out a number of times, and I talk about this with soldiers and airmen all the time. The board looks at things like your assignment history. They look at your education history, both militarily and in your civilian world. They look at your readiness metrics. Have you taken the fitness test within the prescribed time? How did you do on the fitness test? Do you meet the height weight standards? Do you have a security clearance? Have you done all the things that are required of you? And then when you go back to your assignment history, have you taken on some challenging assignments over the course of your career? And then for our senior NCOs and our mid-grade NCOs, we look at your evaluations, and we look at both how you've done in the past couple of years, and we look, more importantly, and we look at your senior rater comments and what your senior rater sees as your future potential for the National Guard. So it's not a surprise for anybody. I will tell you that over the last 2 years, we've changed the promotion system a little bit. And it's not just here in Massachusetts, it's across the National Guard. So from E4 to E5, and now starting next year from E5 to E6, the board will be purely administrative. So you can go into your iPerms file and you can look and see what have you got for awards, is your fitness test current and up to date? And we just do a pure administrative points, and that tells you, how many points you have towards promotion for next year. So how do you compare against your peers is really what it comes down to. And it's not until the E6 to E7, and up into the senior ranks where we start looking at evaluations. Now, what I would encourage all soldiers to do at every grade is if you have an opportunity to serve on a promotion board, whether it's as a voting member or as a recorder, I would highly encourage you to serve on a board because that does, in a sense, give you a peek behind the curtain and expose you to what transpires during the course of a board, but it's no secret. We look at the same things every year. How we weight things every year may change just a little bit, but it's the same things. Bottom line, what do your senior raters think that your future potential is for the Army and the Army National Guard? Okay, those were 4 great questions that we had today and questions from the field. I encourage each and every one of you that if you've got a question that hasn't been answered, reach out to me either through social media or reach out to the public affairs. Get us your questions because the more we provide you with the information to make you a better soldier, to make you a better airman, the better our Guard's going to be. Thanks for all you do and have a great Guard Day.